Okay. So I really want to continue a question that Reb Shmuel asked last Chabura, springboarding off of a concept that we spoke about last week, but I think the next sugya really cuts into the idea that I think resolves what Shmuel raised. Last week we spoke about makas. We opened up the category of makas, and we introduced an idea that actually a diak from the Mishnah that the Mishnah reads that when it comes to all the other categories in the Mishnah, so you have the main categories of dinei mamnis, which is b'shlosha and all the subsets of that. Then you have the final category, which is dinei nefashos, and that's the most severe category. And then you have what you expect the Mishnah to say, the middle category, which is malchus, somewhere between Mammon and Misa, and you would expect the Mishnah to say Dinei Malchus be'esrim u'shlosher or Dinei Malchus b'shlosher, which happens to be a machlokes Tanoim, which we're about to discuss in the Gemara. But that's not what the Mishnah says. And one of the Talmidim of the Brisker Rav pointed this diak to the Brisker Rav, which the Brisker Rav was very fond of. And he said it's fascinating that the Mishnah says Makos b'shlosha or Makos be'esrim b'shlosha, machlokes Tanakama versus Rabbi Yishmael. So he explained it based on, which the Brisker Rav was very fond of, based on an idea that Reb Chaim explained, that we introduced last week, that when it comes to the Malchus, it's not just a din Torah on something which might lead up to a penalty and to a punishment called lashes, but rather when it comes to Malchus, for some reason, the actual lashes have to be justified and in front of the Bezdin. We quoted the pasuk that the pasuk says, "The pilu hashofet," and the shofet, the malchus has to be lefanov. It has to be lefanov lifnei hadayanim. And Reb Chaim was mechadesh that if the malchus actually take place by a shliach of Bezdin, by a representative, by someone else, then that doesn't have a shame malchus. It's a punch. It's a whip. It's like a person taking a belt and just lashing you, but that doesn't have a halachic sheim malchus. It needs to be through the Bezdin, not sufficient to just judge it, but rather in front of the Bezdin, the actual lashes process. So therefore, the Mishnah was all-encompassing, not only to say, to mislead you, that the dinei malchus have to be in front of dayanim, but the makos themselves have to be in front of the dayanim, something that Reb Chaim was mechadesh, the Minchas Chinuch was mechadesh, and the Lechem Mishnah already brought proof to this in the Rambam himself, that the actual malchus have to be in front of the dayanim. Reb Chaim had an unbelievable hezber that he said that this might explain a very obscure Rambam when it comes to Hilchos Hazama. The Rambam says when it comes to Hilchos Hazama, we know that there's a concept that kasher zamam veloy kasher asa. It has to be before the Bezdin actually carried out the punishment that they were tricked into carrying out. But once the Bezdin went too far, once Bezdin already carried out the onesh, then the Gemara says that that's already too far and you can't go back on that punishment. So the Rambam says that halacha of kasher zamam v'lo kasher asa for some reason does not apply to malchus. It doesn't apply to malchus. You don't have it by malchus. So the Ravid jumps on the Rambam and the Ravid says, why? This is halacha in Hilchos Hazama. When it comes to Hazama, if they took it too far, we suggested last week one of the explanations of the Kesef Mishnah, a fascinating hashkafa, that if the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted that his hashkafa should be that this punishment, this person should be killed, so it must be that the Rebbeinu Shalom feared the Welt, that should be carried out, that's the way it should happen, even though practically right here it didn't make sense. But everything that happens is hashkacha pratis, and there was a reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed it to happen. So therefore the Kesef Mishnah says, don't touch it. Don't deal with these Eidim, it's too far. But if we were able to catch it in the nick of time, so then obviously we will punish the Eidim, kasher zomam, like we spoke about for a while. So says the Ravid, where does the Rambam get this idea that it doesn't apply to malchus? If it applies to Misa, Avad, it should apply to malchus. It's Tacha Kol Shekain, says the Ravid. So says Reb Chaim, it's a very practical reason. We just learned that malchus is not only dinei malchus. But makos is the actual makos themselves. And says Reb Chaim, to be a kasher zaman v'loy kasher asa, it has to be a halachic kasher asa. It has to be a bezdin's kasher asa. And if it wasn't a bezdin's kasher asa, because it turned out that this whole bezdin was false, so it happened to be that there was in front of three guys with long coats. Not the first time we saw religious figures that slipped up. You know, instead of being lashes, they were beating up a guy, and it doesn't have a halachi shem malchus, so it's not kasher zaman lo kasher. It's never kasher also when it comes to malchus by definition, because if the makos were not justified, then it wasn't makos, because the makos have to be in front of the bezdin that justifies it. So Reb Chaim, Josh asked me this the following day after the Chabura. He asked me that, by the way, Mazel Tov just bought a house. Josh Schwartz. He asked me. So does the Ravid not agree with Reb Chaim's rationale? So if you look deeper in the Reb Chaim says he thinks that the Ravid also agrees to his rationale, but that the Ravid is just arguing within the nature of Hazama. He says, just like by every Hazama, we treat it as if that would have been the halacha, so that's what we would have given him, so we're giving it to you. So even though technically this doesn't have a Shem Malchus, if this Eidus would have been correct, the Eidus would have created this Shem Malchus, so that's sufficient in Hilchos Hazama to actually be considered a halachic kasher also. Says Reb Chaim, the Ravid says you just play make-believe. You play make-believe that if this Eidus was correct, the appropriate action would have been that Eidim should give Malchus. So now that's enough of a kasher zamam, the kasher asa, the loy kasher asa, also over here, that's a halachic Malchus, that you should limit this. But says Reb Chaim, even the Ravid agreed that you need a bezdin, not only for the din of Malchus, but for even the carrying out of the Malchus. For instance, if it came to Misas Bezdin, we talked about this. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman talks about this in the Sefer Kovetz Haaretz. What happens if a guy, I don't want to get involved in the skila, it's too bloody, I'm going to have a goy take care of that. So Rabbi Chanan already, there's a Chubas Rashba that discusses this issue. Maybe you can get a goy to actually carry out. Bezdin should judge, Bezdin should be there, but then they can go home. They can have, what we said last week, they can have lunch. By Malchus, that's not a possibility. By Malchus, they have to be the ones there, and like the Gemara goes on to say, one guy's going to be over here, two guys got to be in back, they got to be saying passages the whole time. There's a process of vinilka lefonov that it has to be in front of the actual shofet. For Shmuel asks, it's a beautiful Reb Chaim. It's a beautiful idea. The diukim are all there, but the fundamental kasha is why. Why should Malchus be any different? What should be the difference? We have to try to give some sort of explanation to this idea. So I'd like to suggest the following idea from something that I heard many years ago from one of my rebbeim. He wrote Svarim al HaTorah, actually Chavatzelis Hasharon. I helped him with the Sefer on Vayikra, Rav Mordechai Karlbach. He had a very fascinating idea, and it goes as follows. The Gemara says as follows. Mishum Rabbi Yishmael Amru be'esrim u'shlosha. So let's go to the next Gemara to try to explain this idea, and with that we'll start already the next sugya, start rolling. Comes along Rabbi Yishmael and says, Malchus, it's not sufficient. With 3 dayanim, Malchus needs 23 dayanim. Why? My time of the Rabbi Yishmael. Why does Rabbi Yishmael need 23 dayanim? My time of the Rabbi Yishmael. Amar Abaye says a drasha. Asya Rasha mechayve mises. He has a Gzeira Shava. Just like it says Rasha by Chayve Mises, so too it says Rasha v'hoyim ben akosa Rasha, the pasuk we've been talking about. So therefore says Abaye, so we know that you need the same amount of dayanim to carry out the punishment. Ksiv hacha v'hoyim ben akosa Rasha. Uksiv hasam asher hu Rasha lamus, malahalan be'esru mishlosha, afkan be'esru mishlosha. Just like by Mises, where it says Rasha, it's by 23 dayanim, so too it's a drasha. By Malchus, 23 dayanim. Very good. Says Rava, what drasha, who drasha, why drasha? I don't need a drasha. Now, it's a very interesting question. Does Rava might have to may very well be that Rava has to subscribe to the drasha for other reasons. Why? Because we learn a lot of the halachos about the the adjudication process from Dinei Nefashos carry over to Dinei Malkus that is learned out from Rasha that we'll see in the fourth parak. There are Gemaras that do apply this din of Rasha. But Rava said, for this thing, for this idea of how many Dayanim, I didn't need this drasha. Even if, I'm suggesting right now, even if Rava in general might subscribe to the drasha. Says Rava, it's a svara. How do I know that Rabbi Shmuel needs 23 Dayanim? Says Rava, Amar Malkus b'makom Misa omedes. Malkus is replacing Misa. If Malkus is replacing Misa, so therefore, I know automatically that if Misa has 23 Dayanim, so then what else needs Misa needs 23 Dayanim? Obviously Malkus, because Malkus is a replacement for Misa. What in the world did that statement just mean? Malkus is a replacement for Misa. It's a nice title for a shir. I don't remember how we called it. What was the Malkus, the something of Misa? But and Rava, it's a good title. But what does that mean in Lumdus? What does that mean? Yeah, what do you want to say?
It means you're really chayav Misa, or you could be chayav Misa, but we're letting you go another chance of life. But you could, or you should have been chayav Misa for what you did.
So Abe's saying something very bold, and if you would have just said that. Stamazoi walking on the street and he would have just said a svara like that, I wouldn't have accepted it. But I have to be a little respectful over here because what Abe said sounds like what Rashi's saying. So I'm not going to pick on you. I'm going to pick on Rashi. But that's what Rashi's saying. Sagt Rashi, Amayr de Gechidish. Unbelievable. Malkus b'makom Misa omedes. The third line in the Rashi. Sagt Rashi. The kevon de over al azharas boro. Since this individual went against an Isser of the Rebbeinu Shalom, Roihu Lamos, he now, this Rashi is frightening. Roihu Lamos, the second you disagree with the Eibishter, you should be put to death. Umi Sazu, Knasalov, Akosov, and the Rebbeinu Shalom and the Torah gave him this penalty and this fine. Varehu Ka'achas min HaMisos. And this punishment is like one of the death penalties. Just like skila is independent, sreifa bifnei atzma, burning is independent, one of the punishments to put it to death, the hereg and sayif, getting your head chopped off. Nami malchus ka'achas min hamisas. So malchus is really like one of those misas, but you know what? Fundamentally, says Rashi on Daf Yudam and Aleph, something to think about next Elul when we're doing tshuva. Anytime you violate an Isser in the Torah, fundamentally you should be died. Dr. Bishmal on Daf Yudam and Aleph and Sanhedrin. Yeah.
Can it be also that Malchus can be deadly?
Oh, excellent. Very, very, very much so. We're not up to there. It's going to be another pshat in the Rishon. Excellent. Good. So that's Rashi's pshat. So Rashi has to say something very heavy, which I would have never suggested. Again, my whole upbringing of halacha is that a person needs to violate Isur on purpose in a matzav of pikuach nefesh. So we have differences of gradations of how much you're going against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have the lavim. First you have the essays, then the lavim, then the misas, and that's dalid chiluke kapara. That's tshuva process. Rashi says, yeah, that's practical, but fundamentally, when you're actually thinking about the Yisurim, says Rabbi Yishmael, you actually deserve to be put to death, but there's a halacha, a chiddush haTorah, that we give you malchus and we give you a chance to actually live. Unbelievable chiddush. So we're not even up to that. So what? So exactly. So what Dr. Bacon's saying is that the Gemara goes on. I stopped the Gemara short because I couldn't understand the line of Malchus B'makom Misa Omedes. Says the Gemara in that line, the last two words on the line is Amar Rav Acha. How many lines up is that, Abe? 6 lines up. Okay, wasn't such a bad one. I could handle it. Amar Rav Acha B'rei Rava l'Rav Ashi Ihochi Umdino Lamali L'Michye. Again, Sid, this is what you were talking about at the end of last Chabura. We're going to get to your kasha. I thought about your kasha. Excellent kasha where you ended off last week. The Gemara asked the kasha, if so, that what? If so what? If Malchus is b'makom Misa Omedes, so then why do you need an umdina the Gemara in Makkas tells us that the Beis Din had to size up the koyach of the individual, the ability to withstand, how many lashes he has the ability to withstand. So the Gemara says, why was that? Pashtus is why, because we don't want to kill this guy. Frek the Gemara, kashe, if fundamentally Malchus is b'makom misa omedes, what do you need an umdana for? Adarabba v'adarabba. You're fulfilling Kavanas HaTorah if he actually dies. So that's the Gemara's kasha. So what Dr. Bacon's saying is that excellent. Rashi's pshat fits smoothly in the Gemara, as opposed to what we'll see in a second is not going to fit so smooth in the Gemara.
Each one of the misos based it has a particular parameters.
We'll get excellent. We're getting it.
The parameters of this quote misa, malikati palga.
Yeah.
The parameters of this misa is that you can't actually cause it to die. That's the Gemara's answer.
That's what the Gemara is getting to. But the Gemara thought right now to take it literally, that this is the way you carry out that misa, and if he dies, he dies. Because it's mamish tachas. You're saying a chiddush, that it's not so tachas. It's not so tachas misa. It's, what is it?
I don't know, but the Gemara's assumption is also that it's not so tachas. Because
Why?
otherwise it would just do misa.
No, the Gemara tells you, the Torah is mechadish to you that malchus. So the Gemara is asking now, so even a malchus that could kill. So whip him to death. We already have a concept like that. Koifinat sheteitze nafshem. Many Rishonim say when you're giving kfiyah, actually I think that was the first chabura that we gave you, right? Koifinat sheteitze nafshem. A mitzvah's essay that we have to try to get a person, many of the Rishonim say, if he dies, he dies. And there you don't have umdanos. There you don't have this. If it's a deterrent for the future, it's an unbelievable chiddush. But the Gemara in Ksubas Peivav, give him malchus. So now the Gemara is taking that same approach when it comes to lashes. Let him die. What's the problem? Okay, so the Gemara is mechadish. The Gemara is going to have psukim in a second to be megala to me that no, there's a breaking point. We can't let him die. But fundamentally, before I had that pasuk, maybe I would let him die. Okay, look at the next pshat in the Rishon. Malchus tachas misa omedes. Yesh mefarshim. Look at the Tosfos, the bottom Tosfos on the daf. Yesh mefarshim. Rabbi Isai, I just pointed out that what Abe and Rashi said is earth-shattering. I don't even know how to give a term to this, if that's earth-shattering. This is mind-boggling upon mind-boggling. Listen to what the Tosfos says. Yesh mefarshim. What's pshat malchus makom misa omedes that all the Rishonim are struggling with? You take a malchus that you never thought had any shachs to misa. Mishum debnei noyach azaroson zui misos. Since by bnei noyach we have a Gemara later on in the 7th parak that tells us Azharosan Zui Misason, that if a Ben Noyach, a Gentile, when Klal Yisrael is in control, doesn't follow one of the Sheva Mitzvah Noach, one of the Noachite laws, so then what? Chayiv Misa. He's done. The Torah says it's Asr, that's it. It doesn't have to repeat it, doesn't have to give an Onesh. He gives a Azharosan Zui Misason. The Torah said it's Asr, he's killed, no matter what it is. So therefore what? V'nitnis liYisrael malchus al azaraso, and that same Isser that doesn't have an oynish. When the Torah says something's Asr for Yisrael, what? It will get malchus. Again, what's the default of the Torah? Let's remember. The Torah never says malchus. It's a little bit of a strange thing. The whole concept of malchus, that's like a arboim yaket. It's so not fair. Even what we're talking about, v'hoyim ben hakos harosh, it's alluded to, and that's the source of malchus. It never says beferish, even the number, right? It's the whole story with Malchus is a very strange story. But you know what? Malchus gets all the publicity in the world, even though it's actually not stated beferish by any of the Issers. Why? Because Malchus is the default of the Torah. Anytime you violate a lav, right, as long as it's following the rules of lavim, it's a lav sheyesh b'maisa, even though the Torah doesn't say Malchus, 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 which is necessary by what? By every one of the chiyuvei misas of Klal Yisrael. It's not enough for the Torah to say you can't sleep with your mother. The Torah has to say it again that you're going to get a misa. The Torah has to repeat it. Azarasan loi misasan when it comes to Klal Yisrael. When it comes to Bnei Noach, the Rebbeinu Shalom said, this is one of the 7 Noachite laws. I don't need any onshin. I don't need any explicit. That's already. It's Asr, he gets killed, put to death. When it comes to Klal Yisrael, when you just have a Azhara, when you have a Lav, when the Torah tells you don't eat Nevela, never told me what the punishment is. So I know by definition, I get Malkus. The default is Malkus. When it comes to Misa, when it comes to Klal Yisrael, I have the warning. I wouldn't have known from the warning, from the Isser, what to do with that. Comes along the Torah and repeats the Isser to teach me, or gives me a Giloi, what the Onish is for every Misa. So comes along this Pshat and says, Yesh v'varsh d'bnei Noyach hazaros d'bnei Sason, v'nit Yisrael yisrael Malkus al hazaraso tachas Misa d'bnei Noyach. So Tosfos says, what in the world could the Gemara mean by Malkus tachas Misa imedes? So clearly Tosfos didn't want to say like Abe, and didn't want to say like Rashi, that what, you're calling Malkus a Misa? Like, come on. Malkus, when did we ever call Malkus a Misa? So therefore Tosfos couldn't have understood it literally. So Tosfos what? He went to the other side of the world to explain this Gemara. He says, since you have a lav, which is Azhara, that sometimes is Misa by Bnei Noyach, so too, when it comes to Klal Yisrael, when they get Malkus, it's got to follow Din and Nefashos-oriented things, and therefore you need 23 Dayanim. What? And by Bnei Noyach do I need 23 Dayanim? And what in the world, since when do we compare Yidden and the Jewish halachas to Bnei Noyach? This is a good chat in the Gemara? What in the world is Tosfos talking about? So Rabbi say, I think this line of Tosfos might be the thread that can answer all of our kashas. You look at the sheet that Adi copied, there's a fundamental issue that the Rambam has in the Shoresh, in the Sefer HaMitzvos, in Shoresh Arba Asar, with the Sefer the Bahag. Says the Rambam. You know what? I'm going to save some time. I'm going to just read the Ramban, because he sums up the Rambam and the Bahag, and then he defends the Bahag. You have any extras, Adi? Ha'ikar ha'arba asar. Pasuk harav sheroyu limnois oinshei ha'mitzvahs mitzvahs esei lefish nitztavenu anachnu b'kiyumam v'roi shenimna kol min oinesh mehem mitzvah achas. I'm in the first column of the Ramban, under the Kuf Tzadi Dalet. Comes along the Rambam and says, I want you to count what he's explaining and what he counts in the mitzvahs, right, which the Rishonim gave a lot of ink to explain what they counted and what they didn't count. They spilled a lot of ink on this. And he said, I want you to count the different death penalties. Meaning, I want you to count the skila penalty, the sreifa penalty, the hereg penalty, and the chenek penalty. B'minyan mitzvahs essay, arba mitzvahs, va'ishim zulaso shemana kol davar miyuchad b'fnei atzmo ad shetiyeh skilas hamachal Shabbos mitzvahs essay achas, v'skilas bal ov v'yadoni mitzvahs essay shenis. So then the Rambam is coming to attack those individuals, namely the Baal Halachos Gedolos, that didn't go in line with the Rambam and did what? They said, no, skila for Chilul Shabbos is counted as a mitzvah essay. Skila for the Isra Avodah Zarah of speaking to a Baal Ov V'yadoni is another mitzvah. So the Rambam says that's wrong. That is all encompassed under the category of skila. He says that can't be correct. V'chein kulam v'amar arav. The Bahag did this without focusing. She'ilu adavar kain, because if that's correct, says the Rambam, hayakol malchus umalchus mitzvah b'fnei atzma. So then if that's the case, you should have 4,000 mitzvahs in the Torah. Why? Because every single malchus should also be counted independently. V'tiyeh etzlenu mitzvahs essay keminyan alavim shaloikin alehem v'tichbal oz, and you're going to double oz mitzvahs essay v'toisef al arba meis be'echrich. You're going to have over 400 positive commandments, because there's a positive command. There's an isser to do it. There's a positive commandment to give malchus on it. There's an isser to eat nevela. Positive commandment. Bas v'chol. Positive commandment to give malchus. So the Ram, you don't do that by malchus. So why are you doing it bahag, by skila, by every sreifa, by every hereg, by every chenek? Listen to the Ramban. Va'ani oimer. Now the Ramban starts talking. Shim nitvois haderech hazeh b'minyan hamitzvahs lios hamnios bechlal shin samechei loisase v'kiyem ha'oinish ba'oivrim b'minyan ramach mitzvahs essay kain ro'ilim nosam. I want to defend such an idea. Shiu kol onshei misas bezdin nimnin echad le'echad kiminyan ha'ishim shehem mechuyavin ha'oinshin lefi she'anachnu nitztavenu mitzvah b'fnei atzmo liskol mechalol Shabbos. When it comes to the misas bezdin, you should count all of those things like the Bahag said, and there's a mitzvah to be ma'anish with skila, the onish bezdin. And the avodah zara with balo v'yadoni, another mitzvah skila. V'nitztavenu mitzvah ascheres, liskol ha'oved avodah zara. Ve'ein avera zu k'muzu, and ve'ein, and underline that. Ve'ein avera zu k'mozu. And since each of one of those averas are independent, therefore the skila of each makes them each independent to be counted independently. V'lo tziva yis'ala osanu bahem mitzvah koleles. The Rebbeinu Shalom never said, oh, you should make sure to be sokel and stone all those that are obligated in skila. That's not what the Rebbeinu Shalom said. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, Mechal Shabbos, skila. Balo v'yadoni, avodah zara, skila, separate mitzvah. El b'chol achas maimer b'fnei atzmo, a separate amira, it's a commandment from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, u'parsha b'fnei atzmo, mitam b'fnei atzmo. Just because you're doing the exact same protocol and you're throwing a stone in each one of those cases, so that's going to be a reason to include them all into one minyan like the Rambam saying, says the Ramban, that's wrong. Fine. Says the Ramban, so then anytime you're doing the same activity, you should count it as one. So why are we making separate minyan mitzvahs to keep Shabbos, to keep Yontif, to keep Yom Kippur? Those are separate mitzvahs according to the Rambam. Apparently it doesn't matter that you're involved in the same activity. But what are you going to do with the kasha from Malkus, Rabbi Ramban? The Rambam says you got to tip the scales if you're going to add every single Malkus. Aval Malkus ein dimyono le'ela, dimyon yofeh. Lefi sheloi nitztavenu ala malkius b'chol avera b'fnei atzma, aval tzivinu yisparach mitzvah klolis achar halav in kulam shenilke al kol halav dom lalav dechasima k'moshe amar b'ferish hamakubal. The Ramban just said something that I think is fundamental for our understanding of the Torah. Says the Ramban, it's not just happenstance, what I just said, that it happens to be that the default is always Malkus. That whenever the Torah tells you, don't do this, so the Torah doesn't have to even instruct you to get Malkus, you know that it's Malkus. Says the Ramban, that's indicative of something fundamental being different when it comes to Malkus, when it comes to lashes, above and beyond the Oinshe Bezdin of Misa. What does that mean? The Ramban is understanding that there's a general concept when it comes to lavin, when it comes to loisase, not necessarily inherent in the Aveira itself, but rather the Aveira represents being myrid of the Ratzon Shalom. The Ratzon Baruch Hu, the Rebbeinu Shalom wants certain things. He wants you to follow his order. And therefore he has a list of halachos, a list of lavin. And what does a person get when he doesn't follow all those halachos? I can give you one unified and one onish for all those restrictions. It's Malkus. Because in general, what did you violate? It's not the basar v'cholav that we have to address. It's not the cheftze de aveira itself that created a pgam in the world. No. It's l'maisa, you went against the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you an hazara, and you went against that. So just like the Melech has to deal with those people that are moired against him, so too the Rebbeinu Shalom has to deal with you. And how does he do with that? He has one over-encompassing rule, one punishment for all the moired b'malchuses. What's that? Malchus. A punishment klali, as the Ramban just told you. Masha'en came, the Ramban's defending when it comes to Chilul Shabbos, the reason why you get skila is not necessarily just because you went against something the Rebbeinu Shalom commanded you, but rather there's actually some sort of physical reality and a pagam, if I would say, in your nefesh that needs to be mituken. Rabbi Yosef Engel writes this a few times in his Svarim, that technically, if we would kill you for every single einish we could really just kill you, and sometimes you might have to. If Bezdin is unsuccessful to carry out one of the Daled Misos that they're instructed to do in that case, so the halacha is just kill it b'chol misa shata yachol lahamis. Ubiyarta aramikir becha. This guy is a threat to society. Kill him. So what's the reason I need to now make categories? That there's skila, that there's sreifa, that there's hereg, that there's chenek. Says Rav Yosef Engel, and he has Rishonim to prove this. That's in order to be metakin, to fix the blemish. There's actually a physical reality. There's something that's actually coming out of that Maisa Aveira that's above and beyond just a Mayrid B'Malchus that actually needs that tikkun from one of the Daled Misos. Comes along the Ramban and defends the Bahag and says that idea of being Oynish, that skila, is actually a part of the Chilul Shabbos. When I'm going to count Chilul Shabbos, I'm going to count skila independently. Even though I'm going to go through the same action when it comes to Balo Viadoni. Because it's that reality of Arba Mises Bezdin that now requires that skila. Because there's something physical that's because of the Chilul Shabbos Shabo that needs the skila, that warrants the skila. It's not just the fact that I violated something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. That's something that exists by Malchus. But there's actually something deeper when it comes to the Daled Misos that requires now one of the Daled Misos, and therefore in the Minyan HaMitzvahs, that actual Chefza Da'avera that was created, that now needs to be dealt with by Bezdin, is now going to be an independent mitzvah in every single Misas Bezdin that exists when it comes to the Daled Misas Bezdin. This is something that the Zecher Yitzchak was mechadesh. I want to just, before I wrap things up, Zecher Yitzchak had a fascinating chiddush. There is a running machlokes between Abaye and Rava in the beginning of Tmura, a fascinating machlokes. We're not going to have time to get into it, but it's a fundamental machlokes kedai to see on your own if you have time. The Gemara in Tmura, Daf Daled, Daf Hey, that has a fascinating machlokes that really affects every single sugya in Shas. The Gemara discusses the following, and this is why it's in Tmura. Tmura is a fascinating halacha. Tmura is I take a behema of hektish, and now I say I want to switch the behema from this to that, right? So that's fascinating, because the Torah says lo yamirenu. The Torah says lo yamirenu v'lo yachlifenu. You don't have the ability. You should not do that. That is an isser. But what does the Torah also say? The Torah says what I did actually takes effect. The Torah says, when I try to do Tmura, hu utmuraso yiyeh kodesh. Basically, what the Torah just says is, don't do that. That's a lo saseh. But what you just did, ovid, if you do it, mahani. It just worked, right? Comes along Abaye, and Abaye says, yeah, that's the reason you get Malchus for all Malchus in the Torah. If it wasn't for the fact that you actually created that result and that effect, so then, says Abaye, you wouldn't have gotten Malchus. So therefore, Abaye has this klal in general, and that's what the Gemara has to go back and forth with all the exceptions. How does Abaye explain this? How does Rava explain that? And Rava says, no, Abaye, you're fundamentally wrong. Tmura is the exception to the rule, with a good number of other exceptions that the Gemara lists there. But says Rava, fundamentally, the reason why you get lashes and why you get Malchus in the Torah is because you were avar amemra dirachmana. And ovid loy mahani. Really, Rava says, in general, when you're working past a lo saseh, what you did didn't work because the Torah restricted it, with a few exceptions. However, Abaye says, what do you mean? I get Malchus. Of course it worked. Asks Abaye to Rava. Says Rava back to Abaye, no. Even though it was lo mahani and it didn't work and the effect didn't take effect, since I tried to go against the words of the Rebbeinu Shalom, that's what I'm getting lashes for. Good. Comes along the Zecher Yitzchak and says, the machlokes in the Gemara in Tmura of Rava and Abaye is only found by Malchus. Says the Zecher Yitzchak, Rav Itzel Aponovitcher, what's the halacha when it comes to chayve mises, when it comes to krisus? Says the Zecher Yitzchak, and he has some proofs to this idea. He thinks everyone agrees that to get Misa and to get Kares, to get one of the other onshin that we're talking about, then even Rava agrees. I'ovid Mahani. Because if it didn't take effect, if that blemish in the world was not created, if that reality was not instated into the existence of the world, so then you don't need the Chiyuv Misas Bezdin. The Chiyuv Misas Bezdin, according to what we're saying, are the result of the effect that was created by the Avera of the Misas Bezdin. It's not sufficient just to go against the Memra de Rachmana, like Rava argues by every Malchus. But rather, it's the Mahani Shabo. It's the result. It's the reality. It's the Pagam. It's the blemish that now needs a tikkun and now needs 4 categories of Misas Bezdin to actually fix and wash out and do kibus on those Pagamim and those blemishes that are existing. That's where Rava is even going to agree, I'ovid Mahani. That was the Chiddush of the Zecher Yitzchak. According to what we're suggesting, it makes beautiful sense. It makes a lot of sense. Because the nature of Chiyuv Misas Bezdin is not just about the fact that you violated and went against the word of God. If that would be the case, so then Rava's opinion would continue. You were Avram Emer D'Rachmana. Who cares what happened and what the result was? No. Chiyuv Misas is based on what you did. You created a world with now Chilul Shabbos in it that now requires a skila, and that's going to be counted as a separate mitzvah because of that reality, and it's not a general going against the approach of the Rebbeinu Shalom. There's more proofs to this, Rabbi Sai, but let's just go back to this Taisus. Give me 1 second. We asked the question, what does Taisus mean? Malchus b'makom Misa, just like a Ben Noach is killed for his Hazhara, so too the Malchus, which is a violation of an Hazhara of a Lav, is somehow Tachas Misa. So we asked, this Taisus makes no sense. What's the shaykhis between a Yid, a Jew, a Yisrael, and Ben Noach? Rabbi Say, according to our explanation, I think it makes beautiful sense. We're suggesting that Malchus is now, the Ramban saying, is a general response to all of the merid in the Torah. What does a Ben Noach get for the Sheva Mitzvah Noach? What Misa? So the Gemara, you're not responsible, we're not up to it yet. Sayef, excellent, Sayef. But what's interesting is that the Gemara knows that it's all Sayef, every single one of the Sheva Mitzvah Noach. Number one, why Sayef? Why specifically Sayef? And number two, if they get Misa, so then why don't they have all the different categories that we have? Let's split it up a little bit. All right, we don't have all the numbers that we could split it up, but 2 here, 2 there, 2 that. We'll figure out some number that will make it rational. Why is it that automatically everything is Sayef? Says Rav Yosef Engel, makes a lot of sense why all of them are Sayef. Because what's Sayef? What does the Melech do when a person rebels? Chops off his head.
Like Malchus.
Exactly. Exactly. What does the Melech do, no matter, no ifs, ands, or buts? No separate repetition. Azhara sanzu imisasan. You don't get a second chance. You don't get a specific oynesh when it comes to Daled Misas, when it comes to Sheva Mitzvah Noach. You want to know why? Because it's exactly what the Ramban just told us by Malchus. It's exactly the same thing. You need social order. The Sheva Mitzvah Noach are not the same 7 mitzvahs that we as Jews have in just counted again. No, the Pri Megadim writes like this, that there are different Sheva Mitzvah Noach. Sheva Mitzvah Noach are 7 ways to keep social order. Don't steal, don't kill, don't do this. And if you do that, it's not the Pagam in the world, it's not the Chefza D'Avera that you created, it's not the I'ovid Mahani, it's not a separate mitzvah to count to be punished each one of those like we have by Daled Chilukei Kapara and Daled Misas Bezdin. No! It's just chopping off the head like every king responds. And you should know there are other responses that we do with his money that are basically off of the idea that it's just Mayred B'Malchus. It's just Mayred B'Malchus. That's all Sheva Mitzvah Noach is. So if that's true, so that's exactly what the Ramban said to us by Malchus. We're going to put it all in one category, all in one package, and we're not going to treat it like Daled Misas Bezdin. Im Kain, so it comes out like Rava's Lashon. Our Malchus, which is what? A function of not Iyav and Lomahani, Iyav and Mahani. It's not because of what you created. Says Rava, it didn't even work what you created, and still you get Malchus. Why? Because you were married by Malchus. Because you rebelled against the king. So you're rebelling against the king. Your default of an Azhara in the world of Yiddishkeit is parallel to what? To the Bnei Noach's rebellion against their king in their area. So the Yesh Mefarshim of Taisus are saying, not just arbitrarily, just saying, oh, Malchus sometimes, and Azhara sometimes lead to Misa. No, it's very Meduyik. It's the idea of the general Issa, the general default response, which is a Meir ben Malchus type response, which is what we're suggesting by Malchus is the exact same default response what's going to exist when it comes to Bnei Noach and his Tachas Misa when it comes to Bnei Noach. It's that idea of an Aveira that represents the Meir ben Malchus and needs a consequence, a general consequence, like the Ramban says, that you don't count independently to represent that response of the king. That's our response with Malchus, and that's the Goyim's response with Sayef, which is Tachas Misa Omes. Yeah.
It's very big that the same, the Iyav and Mahane that we have, that the only difference between Chiyav Malchus for Chil Shabbos and Chiyav Misa is you did it b'mezid, b'fnei Edom.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
So that's why the person, that's why it's Mahane. That's why there's some Gam that was created because it was b'mezid b'fnei Edom after Azhar.
If it was Mezid B'fnei Edom, so you get Skila.
Then it's Misa. If
Right.
If it's not, it's Malchus.
No,
right?
no,
It's
no,
not, then it's
no,
Misa.
no, you can't get Malchus without
Shema,
Edom.
Misa
Yeah, you can't get Malchus without Edom. So there's more rise to this Yisod of the Misa Malchus, but we're out of time, so we'll daven Marv.